When I was doing my master's, it took me a year and a half before I got any positive data. That was very disappointing.
Dr. Kyle Landry is a scientist turned entrepreneur redefining innovation. From earning his Ph.D. in food science at UMass Amherst to founding Delavie Sciences, he's applied cutting-edge research to create revolutionary products like Aonia, an age-defying skincare breakthrough.
Besides running the company, my main thing is driving the R&D in a meaningful way. I'm the only one there for us for food science. When I graduated, it was only me and one other kid graduating. Food science, in my opinion, is one of the most applied sciences you can go for, because your goal is to make something that everyone will eat or touch. It's one of the most underappreciated jobs with one of the highest job placement rates.
Named to the 40 Under 40 list and honored as an outstanding young alumnus, all driven by his passion for merging science and business. This episode is about transforming knowledge into impact and building brands that challenge the status quo.
Science is the same thing. All the techniques that I learned and used can be applied to all other science. On the International Space Station, the water systems are filled with bacterial biofilm. If you have a good product coming out, there's always time to reinvent it and tweak it if it's successful and it goes. Family first. Having a good relationship with your family gives you a good foundation to take risks.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network, but HubSpot doesn't just have great podcasts. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a builder, they've got your back. Now, why is that important? Because if you're building anything, you know that marketing in 2025 is absolutely wild. Now, why is that important? Because you know if you're an entrepreneur, if you're building anything, marketing in 2025 is wild. Savvy customers spot fake messaging instantly. Anything AI generated, they sniff it out. Privacy changes make ad targeting a nightmare, and everyone needs more content now than ever. And that's why you have to have HubSpot's new marketing trends report. It doesn't just show you what's changing, it shows you exactly how to deal with it. Everything's backed by research, but focused on marketing plays that you can use for your business tomorrow. If you're ready to turn marketing hurdles into results for your business, go to HubSpot.com/marketing to download it for free. FreshBooks is supporting today's episode, and if you've ever wondered how successful entrepreneurs stay on top of their finances while growing their business, the answer is FreshBooks. The numbers don't lie. Over 30 million people have chosen FreshBooks, processing more than 60 billion in invoices and saving an incredible 192 hours every year on accounting tasks. Think about it. That's nearly 8 full days you could get back to focus on what really matters: growing your business. FreshBooks is more than just accounting software. It's your all-in-one financial command center. Create professional estimates, track time, automatically bill clients, and capture expenses on the go. Plus, it integrates seamlessly with over 100 business tools you already use, all backed by award-winning customer service. If you're ready to stop drowning in receipts and you're ready to stop chasing down payments, here's what I want you to do. Head over to freshbooks.com to start your 30-day free trial, no credit card required. And for all you Success Story listeners out there, I've got something special. Get an exclusive 60% off for 6 months when you visit freshbooks.com/pricing-offer. Transform your business with FreshBooks today. That's freshbooks.com/pricing-offer for 60% off. Today's episode is brought to you by Vanta. Now, listen up. This matters for your business. In today's digital landscape, security isn't optional, it's essential. Without it, deals stall, sales cycles stretch on, and scaling becomes very difficult. Now, why? Because investors, customers, and partners all expect businesses to demonstrate strong security practices before they commit. If you can't prove trust, you lose opportunities. So whether you're a startup founder trying to land that first big client or an established company scaling your security program, Vanta helps businesses of all sizes prove that they're trustworthy by automating compliance across 35 frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA, the exact certifications your prospects are demanding. Here's why you need to pay attention. Vanta gives you back precious time that you're currently wasting on compliance. Their platform automates up to 90% of the tedious compliance work. It helps you respond to those endless security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and it connects you with experts to get your security program running immediately. The results speak for themselves. A recent IDC report found that Vanta customers achieve over $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. So you're going to join over 10,000 global companies like Atlassian, Cora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. And don't miss this. For a limited time only, my listeners can get $1,000 off Vanta. That's real money back in your pocket. Visit vanta.com/Scott right now before this offer expires. That is VANTA.com/Scott. How would you describe what you do for a living?
Okay, that is a very interesting question. So right now I'm in consumer product goods and cosmetics, but what I do, I would say, is try to innovate and fill gray spaces in areas. And cosmetics is an interesting one because there is innovation, but the actual innovation there is very thin in terms of, real depth and science behind it. So because of my background, I'm able to really dive deep into the science and do it. So I guess besides running the company, my main thing is driving the R&D in a meaningful way to actually make but functional ingredients to really help people. But cosmetics is just one thing. I also teach at Boston University. I have a few other side businesses, and I have my general life that I deal with. Family, kids, hobbies, lack of sleep. So all those things, but it's all over the map.
Yeah, I mean, your background's interesting. We'll talk about it, but even right now, forget your background. Even what you do right now is interesting. I don't know. You juggle a lot of stuff. You juggle a lot. You're an entrepreneur. You're a scientist. You're husband, father. But take us back to. I want to talk about even some points in your life where you could choose different paths. I think that's fun. I just learned about I learned about the history about where you could have gone into TV and film. But even before that, growing up, what was your household like? Was there science? Was there entrepreneurship? What was it?
My dad was a cop. My mom was a nurse.
So none of it.
Nope. And the rest of my family was basically blue-collar workers, construction workers, electricians, pipe fitters, bank tellers, manufacturing people in machine shops. Not really much going on in the science world. And then even in high school, when I was going to graduate high school, I didn't even want to go to college. I actually was going to enlist in the Navy. And my father goes, just apply to one school. Just please do it. And I was like, fine. So I applied to one small school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But there was this major called food science. And I'm like, I like food. I like science. I'm just going to go with it. And that kind of started. But yeah, my family, one thing my father and mother did, they loved collecting things. And that kind of segues into stuff I talked about earlier, which we'll cover later on. But they love collecting things, very hands-on, always building things around the house, doing a lot of construction, yard work. Hands-on stuff with cars and motorcycles. Yeah. So I really had the hands-on aspect, which is why I think I fell in love with science and specifically what I did in school, because it was all hands-on. I'm working with my hands. I'm purifying things, creating things. And that's what I still do now.
You chose the degree, the undergrad, that basically shaped your entire life, like people choose a liberal arts degree.
Better believe it. So what happened? So I was like, I'm going to go for this degree. My dad Googles it, and he's like, you're going to be making Twinkies? Like, what the hell are you doing?
What is food science?
What is food science? So I go to an open house, and there's a professor there, and he's like, I'm the only one there for food science. The school I went to, when I graduated, it was only me and one other kid graduating. So it's a very, very small degree at this university. And he's like, I got to run to a class, but I want to show you something. So he holds up these test tubes. He's like, do you see what this is? I'm like, I don't know. My parents are behind me like, this guy's whacked. And he's like, look at this. And he puts it under UV light. And one fluoresces blue, one fluoresces green, and one fluoresces red. And he's like, these are all the toxins in peanut butter and milk that come from just, fungi growing on the crops. I'm teaching about toxicology. And I turned to my dad, I was like, I like this. This is fun and exciting. So that's literally how I picked it. And I actually didn't do well in college.
But you graduated?
So my first year, I almost failed out. My GPA was like a 1.3, something like that.
Was Was it because high school was easy? And then when you get into college, you realize that you can't just drift through?
Now that I think about it, so in high school, yeah, it was, I kind of
happened to me too.
I didn't really have to try. I kind of would just do it. My father would always be like, I don't understand. You're the only high school kid with no homework. And I'm like, oh, but I did the homework, but whatever. So I do bad the first year, but then I get my act together because my dad's like, you better do better. You're getting kicked out, this and that. And the school's like, you're going to get kicked out. So then I was on Dean's List and President's List every year after that. I only graduated with a 3 something after all that time and effort, but I still graduated and then went on to grad school after that. But that was also just a whim decision.
Grad school.
Yeah.
The other journey that you could have taken in life, you're very entrepreneurial. I think that the things that you did growing up, you still see that you still apply the same, I don't know, entrepreneurship, thrill to build things. Like that has always been a through line. Mm-hmm. So I know that when you first were going to school, there was an opportunity for you to go onto TV, and you talk about your brother and how you both like collecting things. And from a young age, you were very entrepreneurial. With arbitraging?
Buying collections and then reselling them either at auction or online.
Yeah. So I want to understand what the opportunity was before you chose to do your postdoc. Because to correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't done that much school. So it's undergrad, which is what I did that. I did my MBA, which is like grad. And then after that is PhD, then postdoc?
Yeah. So I did my bachelor's, then I did my master's, then I did my PhD, and then I went on after as a visiting research scholar.
Okay. So after you did your PhD, what was your other life you could have pursued before you chose the postdoc?
So my brother and I had the opportunity to create a reality TV show called Kings of Pop, and it was produced by members of the A&E team, and it was all about collecting collectibles, reality TV. And because at the time, my brother was, he was on Travel Channel's Toy Hunter, getting ready for Antiques Roadshow, and it was all about collecting. So we went to the director of the Blair Witch Project, Eduardo Sanchez's house, looked at his Star Wars collection, filmed a few episodes. And that was in 2015. And that was right when I was graduating my PhD. So at the end, we did the pilot. It was screened. We were like, okay, am I going to go into reality TV or have this opportunity that came up at Harvard Medical School? Like, what do I pick? And I already did 10 plus years of college. And I was like, oh, do I want to risk it all to go film for 6 months and have the show flop and lose this opportunity, or kind of go with what I know? So I ended up going to, the Harvard Medical School.
And at this point, what is you have a very interesting life. I'm just going to say that because we're going to go through it, and your life is actually very interesting, all the different things that you've done. But at this point, what is your passion? What kind of science do you care about? After a 4-year undergrad in food science, you do your master's in food science. So now you love
PhD in food science.
So it makes a lot of sense that you're probably going to figure out how to have a career in food science. When you go through everything, you have your PhD and then you're going to your postdoc and also food science?
No, longevity.
Longevity?
Department of Genetics.
What does that mean? Like, what kind of job is food science? What are you solving for humanity with food science?
So every single thing people drink, from that water or any food they touch, a food scientist has worked on it. And food science, in my opinion, is one of the most applied sciences you can go for, because your goal is to make something that everyone will eat or touch. So you could be in food micro, food safety, product design, so developing, cookies or chips or the next snack bar, or healthy foods, or you can be food engineering, so actually working on the machines that make the food processing in the food processing plants. It's phenomenal. I think, based on my experience and what I know, being on the board of a department, a few other things, it's one of the most underappreciated jobs with one of the highest job placement rates in general, because everyone needs to eat. We have finite land. The population keeps growing. So somehow we have to provide food for all the people while we're losing resources. And food science is an interesting thing. So originally I was going to be a professor. So I started teaching at Boston University when I was 23.
That's young, no?
Yeah, it's pretty young.
Yeah.
So I was teaching classes in the graduate and undergraduate in the Department of Health Sciences at Boston University. My goal was, after I graduate my PhD, go there full time and teach there. But the opportunity at Harvard came up.
And what made you switch from food sciences to longevity?
That was an opportunity. So I was doing my PhD, and I remember I got a phone call, Boston area code, so I thought it was BU. I pick it up, and it's this guy, David Sinclair from Harvard Medical School. He's a big deal. I had no idea who he was. And he's like, hey, Kyle, I read some of your papers. You're the only person in the world doing this type of work. How about you come to my lab and work on this when you're done with your PhD? And what he was asking me to do was in the wheelhouse of what I did. So like, let me step back. Like, you know how math is like a universal language? Yeah. Science is the same thing. Like, even though I'm in food science, all the techniques that I learned and used can be applied to all other sciences, whether it's running protein gels or sequencing or doing enzyme assays. Yeah, I applied it for, like, in my case, bean sprouts. But all those techniques I could use in the area of genetics and longevity. So even though it seems like a big stretch, scientifically, the toolbox I had fit like a glove. So I decided to go there.
Was there ever a point in your career when you went back and used some of the food science?
Oh, all the time. So believe it or not, cosmetics are very similar to food. A lot of the ingredients in cosmetics are food ingredients. Really? So you making emulsions or delivery systems or stability, even the cadence of creating things and the business sense for margins and production scale timelines kind of mirror that of the food industry. So I use it all the time, believe it or not.
What we're spending so much time studying food and food science, what are some, I would say, scary, unnerving things about the food that we eat that people don't quite know?
There's a few things. I'm in the mindset of moderation is key. So yeah, there's some negative attributes to foods, maybe some of the preservatives or the colorants, but everything in moderation, should balance out fine. It's even like if you eat McDonald's, like fast food, like eating it now and then isn't going to destroy you. But having a moderation mindset is good. My biggest pet peeve is like kind of the marketing side, where people will market things as like the cure for something or help alleviate something. And the science is there, but it's not science that's actually been proven out as rigorously as some people think. Well,
I see. So where I'm going with this is people speak a lot about seed oils.
Oh, yeah.
People speak a lot about why they feel every time they go to Europe, they lose weight and they feel healthier versus when they're in the US. Obviously, pesticides. And plus, like every second fitness guru on Instagram has their own view about food and what you should eat in this diet and that diet. But not many people are scientific. Yeah. And I'm curious what actually holds weight or what actually is true outside of just some, Instagram influencer spouting off the latest trend.
So like seed oils and other things that are pro-inflammatory, things that drive inflammation. Inflammation is bad. Inflammation causes a lot of problems, but there are a lot of other things that are inflammatory as well. Like my favorite is like, I don't want to eat, seed oil or something, but I'll go drink alcohol every night. You know what I mean? It's like you have to, it has to be a whole lifestyle change, right? And even some diets like paleo diets or some of these other things, they're not necessarily sustainable for a long period of time. They're good to cut weight or they're good to get you feel good for a little bit, but you can't live on those your whole life. It's difficult. So like, I always say like moderation and try to stick within the 2,000 calorie, 2,500 calorie, because that alone, that with sleep and good hydration will make you feel amazing. Because a lot of people don't realize how many calories they're actually taking in. And if you try to stick with the 2,000 calorie or 2,500 calorie, whatever you want to do, you'll be like, wow, I actually can't eat the snacks or the chips or the things I go to all the time. But there is things to say to whole foods or minimally processed foods where you get a lot of fiber, a lot of nutrients, right? Nothing will replace those. It's just our biology and how fast things absorb. how you feel after, glycemic index, things like that, that impact your feelings.
Is part of the work that food scientists do, and I guess this, it's not like a conspiracy, but it sounds like something that is a little bit nefarious, like including ingredients in foods that make them addictive. Is that?
So I guess I'm going to say no. Like, it's not intentional, but food is designed for what? To sell.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're a food company and your goal is to sell, you want to make foods that people want. And people want certain foods because we're biologically designed to want high calorie foods, because back when we were in the caves, we didn't know when we would eat.
Yeah.
So we have that craving for high calorie foods, like high fats, stuff like that, because we want to pack on as much as we can. But now with our sedentary lifestyle, all these different things is kind of counteracting our
So now we're still craving the same foods, but we don't move.
And everything's accessible, right? I can go down to the store and buy a bag of chips for 99 cents. Oh, that's amazing. That's great. So it's you have to look at all facets.
You were working with bean sprouts.
Yeah.
So bean sprouts, I think they've sort of carried through all of your work, because what I'm looking at here, they impacted your work with David Sinclair. They also impact some of the things that you did in space with NASA.
A whole bunch of
So
things.
talk to me about bean sprouts. And this is work that you were doing when you were still in school.
Yeah. So my PhD was all about bean sprouts, of all things. But bean sprouts are incredibly dirty. And I say dirty as they have a lot of bacteria. A lot of bacteria on bean sprouts, and they're minimally processed, which means, if you have some foodborne pathogens on there and you eat them raw, you get sick. So one of the things around bean sprouts is bacterial biofilms. And these are basically structures that bacteria build. It's like on your teeth. Like you don't brush your teeth and you scrape it, like the stuff comes. That's a bacterial biofilm. It's the same thing happens on produce, on bean sprouts. Same thing happens on the International Space Station, the water systems. Same thing happens with some of the stuff we're working with David with. And I was trying to figure out how to stop them. And so I developed a novel disinfectant. This is patented, where I would make spontaneous nanoemulsions of carvacrol oil. It's like essential oil, and would basically disinfect bean sprouts and seeds and make them safer. We actually went and pitched this to commercialize it, but the manufacturing process and the overall cost per unit was just a little too high for farmers to really adopt, because the margins on bean sprouts are like razor thin. Like, you're not making a lot. So adding, an extra 10 cents per production,
it kills the profitability. Yeah.
So, but the technology was sounding great. It just was an example of something that wasn't commercially viable because the economics didn't plan out.
So how do you take that into longevity research?
So so there's another technology I was working on, which a bunch of these enzymes. And these enzymes broke down components of bacterial biofilms. And there's one specific part that broke down DNA. And believe it or not, bacterial biofilms are held together by extraneous DNA. So DNA that bacteria release and acts like a glue. So longevity-wise, the organisms that this came from are called extremophiles. So these are organisms that live in extreme environments. And this one organism was able to grow at 55 degrees centigrade. That's like 135, 137 degrees Fahrenheit. And why David was interested was, how can this organism survive for a long time without taking on a bunch of mutations and mutating and dying, right? So we were looking at like DNA repair mechanisms and the enzymes associated with it, because with longevity, damage to your DNA accelerates the aging process. And this is something called epigenetic drift, where over time, all the environmental stuff we get exposed to, whether it's food, pollution, sunlight, makes these damages over time, where eventually we're not what we used to be, and this leads to cancer. So we were trying to figure out how we can hijack these extremophiles and use them to protect ourselves and understand aging. And that led to another patent that ended up bringing us into the biodefense space, which is a whole other area things.
Was there anything that you discovered that is currently used commercially?
Yeah. So the enzymes are used in some of our commercial products, like face cleansers, toners, stuff like that.
Now the commercial.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then the stuff from space is used in sunscreen, stuff like that. But the delivery system, that hasn't been licensed or incorporated, but the technology, the fundamentals around the technology are being incorporated in other areas.
Well, I meant like in terms of DNA protection.
Yeah. So not commercially used, but in a lot of research for whether it's astronauts' health on the way to Mars.
And that's how that.
That's one of the things.
Okay.
That's one of the things. Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's not on the market, but it's the foundation for a lot of research now that's moving forward in the space.
When you patent these like very novel technologies, or is that the right word? Technology?
Yeah, technologies.
What's the path from when you start working on it until somebody can go buy it and then use it for themselves for whatever longevity practice?
So it depends on the type of product, right? So for example, with the space ingredient, which we'll cover, we proved it in lab. We did all the clinical testing. We submitted it for a patent, but then we have to go from a test tube to scale, right? Like doing something in the lab is great, but if you can't scale it to the masses, it's useless. So then you have to scale that. And then once that's scaled, then you got to put it in products, and then you got to scale the products. You got to test it, then it goes to market. So for like the ingredients for a lot of the products we have, maybe 3-4 years, maybe 5 years, depending on how complex it is. The space ingredient, that was...
When you say space ingredient, just to clarify, that's also the DNA protecting ingredient.
That one, that's sun protection and DNA protection, DNA activation. That's one of them. Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah. It's like 5 years, give or take.
When these products actually roll out and somebody can buy them, based on your work with David Sinclair and a lot of the other longevity items that you worked on, what does that actually, in your opinion, mean for the human lifespan, health, wellness, disease mitigation?
It's actually a big deal.
I have no doubt it sounds like a very big deal.
So it's exciting, and I'm still blown away every time I see products that feature our ingredients in them. I'm like, wow, I can't believe like it's real. Like, I'm just like blown away. Nothing's cooler.
Well, you were on bleeding edge.
Nothing's cooler than, seeing something you developed, you worked on for years and years and years, now be accepted and adopted by the industry. It's phenomenal. But like for the, one of the ingredients helps protect from sun damage. And sun damage is a huge thing. And it actually is added to sunscreens and helps increase the sun protection factor. Skin cancer is a big deal. People are craving for innovation. Brands and companies are craving for innovation because there's almost no innovation in sunscreen protection at all in the US. And it's just great to see something that we worked on that started out as a novel research project ended up changing an industry.
No, I have no doubt. I mean,
it's phenomenal.
Well, I mean, even looking at so from what it sounds like, when you do this research, you target you will target sun damage as one of the most practical applications for this. But there's a whole bunch of other applications that can eventually be applied, but you're probably focusing on the most commercially viable application, or the most useful application of this technology.
Yeah, you have to like juggle it because time to market's a big factor. And then obviously, you got your TAM and where it can go. Especially when you're in regulated spaces, you got to figure out, okay, if this is regulated by like a drug agency, is it worth the 10 plus years and X millions of dollars? Are you going to recoup that when you finally launch? In our case, the answer was no. So we went another way and went into SPF boosting, where it's not the main protection that's in a sunscreen, but it boosts the current protection and makes it more effective. That was a faster timeline to market, shorter cost of entry. And production was a lot cheaper than making a drug. So we decided to make that decision to go to market faster so we can actually start generating revenue to fuel some of the other R&D projects we have ongoing.
How many longevity products, life-saving products, disease prevention products never see the light of day because of the economics not working out.
Well, just look at drugs, right? So people will put in decades and decades of work on a drug. They'll put millions and millions of dollars. Then all of a sudden it fails safety, or you'll go through phase 1, you'll go through phase 2, but then when it goes to phase 3 trials, which, it takes you years, 10 plus years to get there, it fails, right? So there, more often than not, products fail, whether it's in the drug space or in the commercial space. And the commercial space is interesting because you could still go to market with something with some scientific claims, but it may not actually work per se, like some of the supplement industry, stuff like that. But in regulated spaces where, like sunscreen, for example, where there has to be efficacy, you have to make stuff work there.
Was there anything that you were working on that could significantly impact how long somebody can live?
Yeah, there was.
What is this like a telomeres thing? Is this like anything to do? That's a different thing completely. I always hear that word associated with
the length of telomeres. That's questionable in my opinion, honest opinion. But we have a sister company, a drug company, and they're in 5 phase 2 trials working on various indications linked to aging with all novel compounds. So that's like the exact opposite. So I'm in the consumer product space, get to market to help the masses. The other arm of the business, which I'm part of, I'm not involved with them day to day, but we're in the same groups, is going the drug route where they're targeting very specific indications linked to aging with a bunch of novel compounds. And so those are going to be monumental because they target, some of them are vast indices like diabetes or acute kidney disease, and also some very small ones as well, niche markets that will be game changers too. So that's a big deal. That's the drug side.
I mean, when I think about some of the work that you've done, I want to talk about, before we go into Delavie and what you do now. I think that it's interesting just to talk about how at certain points in your career to find these extremophiles, you were going 5,000 feet underground into abandoned mines. Like, talk to me about the day in the life of somebody like a scientist. Like, what are you doing to find novel technologies and novel? What's an extremophile? What is it? An organism?
Yeah, an organism that lives in extreme environments. Yeah.
Where are you finding these organisms that impact a consumer good, somebody on the space station? Yeah. Like, so how do you even for a second think, if I go 5,000 feet underground, this is what I'm going to discover? It's going to have so many other applications.
It's all in the mindset. So I started out with extremophiles 2009. And what I did was I put an insemination glove on, like for cows. It goes all the way up to my shoulder. And I shoved my arm into a pile of dead animals and feces. And I pulled out samples. And from that, I isolated maybe 20 new species of extremophiles. So I've been working with extremophiles since 2009.
These have a million different applications.
Millions and millions of different applications. Yeah. Now, I've even worked, so I'll give you another story. So during the BP oil spill, this was 2010, I think, or something like that. My lab was contracted. I was contracted by an environmental group to try to find like a bacterial remediation for the oil spill. So I went to a pine forest and I isolated samples from pine tree roots. And you may think, why the hell would you go to pine tree? Well, pine trees secrete pine oil. And I know it's not the same type of hydrocarbon structure as oil, but pine oil, if enzymes can hydrolyze that and bacteria can use that for food, there's a good chance they can hydrolyze petroleum-based products. So we actually found 3 organisms that could break down oil, and was so crazy. I remember getting buckets and buckets of oil, like oil tar balls, all this stuff from the beaches of Alabama, and working on it day and night, trying to figure this out. We actually found 3 organisms that could do it, and a way to remove the oil from the sand. And we sent that over to the environmental group in BP, and they used it for some time to break down the oil. So that was 2010. So it's thinking, what can you use? Like the mine, for example. In the mine, it was full of pro-oxidants, things that drive oxidation or promote inflammation. So if these organisms could survive in an environment that would normally oxidize or break down or destroy DNA, they must be doing something to survive. So I go down there, I find them, do some stuff in the lab, and then I find out what they're producing or what compounds they make that protect themselves, and then see how it impacts your skin.
So it seems like a lot of the work that you've done is you find organisms in one environment and you figure out how they can impact everything else.
Yeah, and that's the easy part. The hard part is bringing it to market, like commercialize, figuring out how to produce it at scale.
You have to prove out the variety of tests and long process.
You got to show it's safe. You got to figure out how to manufacture it and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's very interesting. So talk to me about how bean sprouts then went into extremophiles and then eventually ended up on the space station and working with NASA. And I have a word here, and I'm gonna say it, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Bacillus Lysate.
That's right.
It is?
Yeah,
okay,
that's
good.
Right. So here's the story. So the extremophiles that I was isolating produced enzymes that could break down bacterial biofilms. On the International Space Station, the water systems are filled with bacterial biofilms, and there's no way to clean it.
And why is that?
It's just been up there for decades, and bacteria.
Oh, it's not like a space thing. It's like
It's just, well, remember, we go up to the space station, we shed bacteria all over the place. Yeah. It colonizes. It's not like they're up there with bleach, like bleaching things, because it'll oxidize all their computers, all their components, all their delicate equipment. And these bacteria grow, and some of them even short circuit the computers. Like bacteria will grow on the circuits and blow out, like cause electrical issues. It's crazy. So we're working with JPL. We did some subcontracts and did some research on removing bacteria biofilms that are linked to the space station. And then we started looking at dead bug bodies on like the Mars rover. And so Perseverance and Insight, two things that went to Mars. And we're figuring out how to remove those and trying to figure out, what's going on there. So while we're working with them, they go, hey, we did this experiment, 10 years ago or something, and we have this organism that survived outside of the space station for 1.5 years. And when we brought it back down, it survived UVC radiation. Maybe you can use it for something. And I was like,
they'll just give this to you and then be like, figure it out.
Well, and we're like, all right, maybe it's for a sunscreen. And they patented it. JPL had a patent on it for some applications like UV protection, stuff like that. So we took it in the lab. Now UVC it's relevant to us, but our ozone layer blocks it. We care more about UVB and UVA. So after about 1.5 years, 2 years of work, we were able to extend its protection into the UVB and UVA range. And when we started putting it in sunscreens, it significantly improved the sunscreen factors, sun protection factor. So we said, hey, we have something. And then we looked at the market and we were like, wow, there's not a lot of innovation here going on in the sunscreen space. Everything's like zinc or titanium or avobenzone or homosalicylate.
Also sounds not so healthy.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of issues with some of those things, which is why a lot of people are getting rid of them, or some of them are banned now. They're phasing them out. So there was need for innovation. And then we said, okay, how do we make this a product? And then the journey started. But working with NASA and JPL and a lot of those projects, going to the JPL campus, going to the simulated sunroom, seeing mission control, playing and messing around with the Mars rover. It was awesome.
Yeah, the one thing that I thought about when you said it survived outside the space station is if it's surviving outside the space station, it's definitely not dying once it's inside my...
Well, there's no real bacteria in it, right? We extract the compounds that it makes to block the radiation. So you're not actually getting bacteria.
It's not this extra living thing.
No, it's not like a probiotic where you eat the live bacteria. The bacteria is grown, and then we extract and pull out the active components.
So this is how an organism's ability to survive radiation in space, that translates into human skin benefits. Basically.
Human skin benefits, exactly. Yep.
I have a note here that clinical trials show a 48% reduction in melanin.
Yeah.
So explain to me how, because melanin is found in your skin already. Yeah. So does this work twofold? It blocks the sun, but then it also impacts
like age spots or dark spots. Yeah, exactly. So the ingredient is really cool. And this is where the longevity factor comes in. So when we did the UV testing, we were like, this is great. But we were like, this has to also do something else, because blocking UV is one thing, but there has to be something like mechanically going on to kind of protect it. So we started looking at various things. The first thing we looked at were sirtuins. And sirtuins are these ancient enzymes. They're like DNA repair. They're linked to longevity. You know, activating them has been shown to extend lifespan in yeast and in worms, a whole bunch of other things. And that's one of the key, you know, pathways linked to, you know, epigenetics, repairing your DNA damage, stuff like that. So we found that this turns on sirtuins. And we're like, wow, that's a big deal. The second thing it did was, outside of, you know, helping with UV, it absorbed and blocked radicals or things that promote oxidation from sun exposure that lead to accelerating skin aging. So not only does sun, you know, come in and potentially damage your DNA, but it can also start cross-linking things in your skin, like collagen, elastin, all the proteins. And this blocks that. And then we found out that our products impact overexpressing melanin cells, which are linked to age spots and dark spots. And we didn't even know. So we did the clinical trial, and all the people came back. And they're like, hey, can I talk to you about something? And we're like, yeah, what is it? We thought it was horrible. Oh my God. And they're like my age spots are going away. And that wasn't like something that we were told to look for. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, like all of our age spots, the little things, they're gone. They're like, I started putting on other parts of my body to get rid of them. So we were like, oh, we got to go back to the lab. So we went back to the lab. We figured out the pathways it inhibited, what it blocked, and we were able to reproduce it with enzyme assays and also tissue culture assays that lined up with the clinical data we did on humans.
So this isn't just, now at this point, you've discovered it's not just impacting like melanin, and it's not just protecting from the sun, but then it's actually addressing like other visible signs of aging. So what's actually happening with the other parts of the age spots that are disappearing?
Yeah. So what it's doing is it's sequestering. So with the DNA repair with sirtuins, and then the upregulation of hyaluronic acid in your cells, the protection from strong antioxidant power, protection from radicals, all that stuff. We say it's bio-optimizing the cells. It's getting the cells back to the best possible function they can be at that time. It's giving like the nutrients for it. And it's impacting all these key pathways like tyrosinase, which is an enzyme that leads to hyperpigmentation. It's slowing that pathway down. It's helping these other DNA repair pathways kick up. And it blew us away. Like we weren't expecting that. And that's why we were like, you know what? We really have to like come out and really make something with it. Outside
Of good diet, sleep, take care of yourself, are there any other ideas that maybe the Instagram health and wellness longevity influencers put out that are actually helpful? So like things like cold plunges, hyperbaric chambers, IR saunas, things like that, like fasting, stuff like that. So calorie restriction is so far one of the only proven ways to extend longevity, and that's intermittent fasting type of things, right? The other things, yeah, there's scientific evidence behind it, but doing the fundamentals of sleep, exercise, and hydration and diet, so those four things, will outweigh any of the benefits you'd get from a cold plunge. Like those things are small. Like if you do those things, but you have a horrible diet, a horrible lifestyle, you're going to counteract any benefit that's there. So you want to do the most impactful things first. Then if you get to a point where, okay, I'm running a lot, I need to, I want to increase my VO2 max, I want to start, fine tuning your body, that's when you can go to those other things and really see if you can biohack yourself. But if you go in a cold plunge and then go sitting on the beach, get sunburnt, go have drink all day,
drink all day, go eat Taco Bell at 3 a.m, that's the end.
I feel like people use some of these, like these health and wellness hacks as an excuse for a bad lifestyle. And they're just like, it makes you feel good about yourself if you cold plunge after you drink all night. I just think that, I mean, if you're going to do it, like do the basics first, and then all the other stuff is icing on the cake.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
To your point, if you're drinking, if you're eating like shit, if you're not sleeping, like why do you care about the cold plunge?
Why are you doing that? You know,
what you have a very specific approach to clinical testing that differs from the industry standard. Why is that important?
It's very important because I come from a drug development heavy science background. So I want to know the products actually work more than just doing a subjective questionnaire. A lot of cosmetic products or consumer care products will just do subjective questionnaires where they ask 20, 30 people, does your skin feel smoother than it did before the product?
That's garbage.
Yes or no. Like that's literally the answer. And that's why you'll see things like 98% of people think their skin looked better after using it for a day, right? So we do a very intentional study where we do scientific proof first. So we look at tissue cultures, enzyme assays, ex vivo data, so a lot of in-lab data. Then we go to the clinical testing. We do clinical testing. We do instrumental measurements. So we use instruments to measure things. We do expert grading. So we have experts in the industry actually grade. They look for wrinkles. They look for smoothness. Then we do before and afters, and we actually computer analyze the before and afters to get solid data. Then we do subjective questionnaires. And the icing on the cake is when every single one of those things line up. And that's what happens with our products. And that's why we release all the data on our website for people to see.
A big thank you to Indeed for supporting Success Story, because hiring people is one of the hardest things you're ever going to have to do as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as somebody who's trying to build a business. It's important to hire well and find the right person, but it takes so much time and it's so labor intensive because, like most entrepreneurs, you have 1,000 things going on, and there's a good chance that you just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. So how can you find that great, amazing, right fit candidate fast? It's easy. Just use Indeed, because you don't have to waste time struggling to get your job posts seen on all these other job sites. If you're using Indeed, you can just use their sponsored jobs to help you stand out and hire fast. Your post jumps right to the top of the page for relevant candidates, so you can reach out to exactly who you're looking for faster, and the results really speak for themselves. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. And you know what I love most about Indeed? It really just makes hiring so fast, because everything is streamlined in one place. No more juggling multiple platforms or waiting weeks for the right candidate. And how fast is Indeed? In the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed, and listeners of Success Story will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Clary. Terms and conditions do apply. Just go to Indeed.com/Clary. A huge thank you to NetSuite for supporting today's episode. Now, what does the future hold for business? If you ask 9 experts, you're going to get 10 answers. Bull market, bear market, inflation up, inflation down. Honestly, at this point, you just need a crystal ball. But until we get one, over 41,000 businesses have found the next best thing. They future-proofed their businesses, their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, which is the #1 cloud ERP. Imagine having your accounting, your financial management, your inventory, your HR, all flowing together in one fluid platform. And here's what makes NetSuite different. It gives you one source of truth for your business. You get the visibility and control to make quick, confident decisions while others are guessing. You're working with real-time data, insights, forecasting. You're basically looking into the future of your business with actionable data, whether your company earns a couple million or even hundreds of millions. NetSuite helps you respond to immediate challenges and helps you grab your biggest opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, they put together the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Scott Clary. This is the playbook for understanding how to use AI for your business. The guide is free. That is netsuite.com/Scott Clary. I think that, first of all, I didn't realize how low the bar was for taking a product to market. I know, listen, I come from a sports background to a degree, and I know how interesting the supplement industry is.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the cosmetic industry, but I guess it's very similar.
Very same.
And it always blows my mind at how lenient the rules are about what you can say a product does.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if we go back, there's been products that not only are, they're very lenient about their claims, they actually have like banned substances in them.
What's interesting is you can go to market, not do any testing, base your claims on the ingredients you have in the product, but you don't even know if the ingredients are active in your formulation. So you can put something in there and be like, oh, this ingredient has been shown to do this. Yeah. But you don't know what percentage it's in there. You don't know if it does anything because you don't have to test it.
What percentage of the cosmetic or supplement industry is
most, almost a big chunk. Yeah. Big chunk.
So for the person listening who actually wants to buy products that do what they say they do, I mean, it's a minefield.
It's, if you go into any outlet, any store, you read the packaging and you look at the claims and you see the little asterisks and you see it's made with 10 people.
Yeah.
It's like 90% of subjects said they love the product out of 10 people, and they don't really show it. Some of them will show before and after photos, but they don't highlight. Like, they're so small and grainy, you can't see what they're showing.
Yeah.
You go in the store, you'll see.
Why does the FDA allow this?
Because it's not regulated by the FDA. It's not.
What was it regulated by?
Nothing. The FDA now has something called MOCRA, Modernization of Cosmetic Act, which they're trying to regulate it, but that's more for safety and accountability. Like, if there is an issue, if a bunch of people have a reaction or get burned or something, they can trace it back. But claims are just, unless someone files something with the trade, the trade.
But why does the FDA care about a bag of Doritos and not like a pre-workout?
Because one's a supplement and one's food.
That's such a horrible answer, though.
That's what it is.
But why do you know the history? I don't know the history. Was there one point when someone said, hey, you're putting this supplement into your body, let's not classify it under the FDA?
It's a whole.
It's such an obvious.
It's an obvious thing, and it's basically on the company to do its due diligence to make it safe. And and that's why there's so many issues with a lot of flash TikTok products. Yeah, celebrity gets on it, promotes it, then you never see the brand again because it was just a money grab.
Out of all the different, it's horrible. It's scary as hell. It's super scary.
I shouldn't be laughing, but yeah.
No, it's very. I remember that there was a pre-workout that used to exist called Jack
3D.
Yeah, and it had 1,3-dimethyl.
Yeah. The stuff worked.
I know it worked. I know
it was a banned substance, but it worked.
What is that? It was like a party drug or something. 1,3-dimethyl.
It was. I remember it was a stimulant that was in there.
Yeah, it was.
I remember. So back in the day when I could work out before kids and everything, I would take that with my buddy, and I'd see spots.
Yeah, I know. And there's been guys that have gone to jail because they put steroids in their supplements. It's a wild world, man. It's a wild world. All people want to do is go into a GNC and not get shit that's going to kill them. That's all. That's all they want.
Oh, but
what was in your research career? And I know you're doing R&D now too, but what was your most significant scientific disappointment?
All right, that's a good one. So first, when I was doing my master's, it took me 1.5 years before I got any positive data. That was very disappointing. I was like, I'm a bad scientist. And then the second thing was when I started my PhD, I started on a project working on an antibiotic, something from an organism, and I lost the strain. So this was a cool bacteria that produced something that could kill E. coli for foodborne illness. And then I was sloppy in the lab and I lost it.
Lost it.
This is technical.
Ran away? What do you?
No, this is technical, but the genes are put on a plasmid, and a plasmid's like a piece of DNA that's outside of the chromosome.
Yeah.
And I didn't maintain it properly from the
temperature,
growth conditions, keeping it under certain pressures, and it lost the plasmid. So then it lost its ability to kill E. coli 0157H7. But that happened. My advisor was very upset. But then I switched to a new project, and I got 5 papers and a patent and did a bunch of other stuff. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
You can't recreate that though. Why not?
No, because it was a specific, and I didn't sequence it at the time, so I didn't know what it was. I was still doing the rough stuff. So once it's lost, it's lost. It's sad.
That's incredible. When you think about like a take to market strategy for innovation and new technology and organisms, how did you think through that? You didn't want to just keep it for yourself, or?
So it was kind of already built in. It was too late. So when we started, we discovered the SPF aspect before the longevity aspects. Okay. And we were thinking more of an ingredient play. So we were going to be an ingredient supplier for sunscreens. But then after messing around with the longevity aspect in our, backgrounds and history in it and our connections in the industry and academia, we thought, let's make a longevity product, the skincare product, outside of the sunscreen. And it was already too late. We had other companies who were working with it for a year and a half, already putting it in sunscreens. So we couldn't be like, oh, guess what? You can't do that anymore.
And is it because it was licensed out? Or? It
wasn't really licensed, but it was already kind of built into their supply. They've already did the regulatory stuff to get it to market. They already invested hundreds of thousands of dollars on their end to make a product. Yeah. So it would have just been, bad business to just say, hey, guess what?
You could have patented it.
We did. It is patented.
You could have blocked them from using it in theory.
In theory, we could have, but originally we were going ingredients, and then we decided to try skincare on a whim. So we weren't planning on making serums or anything, but the chairman was like, hey, Kyle, just try to make a serum, see how it does. Only make like 100 bottles, see if it's, I'm like, we can't make 100 bottles. You have to make a few thousand. And we launched October 2022. And by the end of the year, we almost did $500,000 in like 2 months with almost no advertising.
So what was the thing that made the product so attractive?
People just loved it. It worked. They would say they noticed something in like a week or a few days, and it was all word of mouth that spread the product. So we were like, wow, we actually have a good serum here. If we did a cold start, minimal advertising, if any. I did like an Instagram live, I think.
you don't have a lot of followers.
And I don't have any. And this is before I had social media. So I was invited on an Instagram live with David Sinclair and Serena Poon. They have a lot of followers, and that jump started. And then I finally got on the social media bandwagon late last year. I think I have like 300 followers, whatever. But I'm trying to grow with
this. Will hopefully send a few more your way. I want to talk a little bit about, so the first product that Delavie launched was obviously sun protection.
The ingredient.
The ingredient. But when you're a scientist, so when you think through what you're going to launch, there's more than just that one particular piece of it. So what other sort of novel skincare ingredients did you include?
Yeah. So when we launched the serum, it was very intentional. So we knew what Bacillus Lysate worked on, what it did. So we view like Bacillus Lysate as the engine, but it needs gas to go, right? So the other ingredients we added were like the fuel to help drive the pathways that the Bacillus Lysate activates. And that's from decades of, not just my expertise, I don't have decades in it, but, David Sinclair and Harvard Medical's longevity type of understanding of the pathways. We fine-tuned it to really work on those things.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. I want to talk about skincare and skincare myths, like what's useful and what's not. But with your products, what would be sort of like the theme around all the products that you actually launch?
So our products, we don't have a lot of SKUs. A lot of skincare companies will come up with 30 SKUs, and you're confused as a consumer which one to use. You have 5 different serums, 10 different moisturizers, right? So we formulate with intentionality. So we were like, okay, let's make a serum. Let's make an eye cream, which is very niche because your skin is different. Let's make a general moisturizer, and then we're coming out with a sunscreen this year. That's it for the Aeonia line, which has a space ingredient. Our new line that's coming out uses novel enzymes from an extremophile to cleanse, exfoliate, and unplug your pores. So this is what you use first to get your face ready for Aeonia with all the beneficial ingredients. So we're very intentional. Again, maybe we're going to have 3 SKUs in there: face wash, toner, and a mask. That's it. Because we design things that work. We show things that work clinically, and we're not out to sell 50 different things.
No, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of...
I want to be efficient as possible. So I would just it's bad business, I guess. I should be making 8,000.
I don't think so.
But I don't
functional. You can build businesses different ways.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad business. I think it's when you have confidence in your product, you aren't trying to cross-sell into things that people don't need because it compromises the integrity of the company. Now, if you don't have a science-based understanding of your product and you just have this little survey you send out, and you can send out a lot of surveys about a lot of different products, and well, I can cross-sell and upsell and increase the LTV of the customer because all of our stuff works to some degree, but it's not science-based, but it seems like the market receives it well. I don't know. I like the way you build businesses better. What are some of the biggest misconceptions? Because obviously, most people have some sort of skincare routine. I need a better one than just moisturizer. I like, in my mind, I just want like a moisturizer that has everything in it because I just don't want to put on like 5 different things because I'm a guy. I don't know. But what are the biggest misconceptions about the average person's skin care stack that they have right now? What do they need? What do they not need?
Yeah, you basically need a good face wash, a good moisturizer, and a good sunscreen.
Not a dozen different products.
Not a dozen different products. Because what ends up happening when you have a dozen different products, it can start causing negative reactions between one another. That's why sometimes you'll add one thing and all of a sudden you have breakouts, right? And then you change something, you'll have breakouts. Just like what I was saying with longevity, like diet, exercise, hydration, sleep. Basics for skincare. Find a good face wash that works. Find a good moisturizer and a serum, for extra active if you want those, and a sunscreen for protection. Yeah. See how that works. Because I've talked to a lot of people and they're like, oh, I got 15 things. It takes me 45 minutes. I'm like, do you need all that? And they said, well, I'm afraid to not use it.
So someone's a marketing genius.
So I said, why don't you just try doing the basic essentials for like 2 weeks? Because you can always go back to using what you used before. It's not like you're going to age exponentially in 2 weeks, right? So just see what you can cut back. And if you notice anything, and then you'll feel like liberated and self-empowered. And that's like one of the things, like I like to talk about my Aeonia and Delavie and what we go for. It's like, we want to give you things that work so that you feel like self-empowered. You're not like bogged down with 20 different things and you have to do this routine. It's like, just use these things and go with it, and it'll free up a lot of time.
Is this where the sort of the joke that guys don't put anything on their face and they always look good, and then like women put on everything and they always have like skin conditions?
I mean, there's hormones and stuff too built in there, but I mean, unless you're using like junky soap and stuff like that. But if you use a basic moisturizer and a good face wash, like you're not stressing your skin. Remember, the more products.
That's what I mean. 12 products.
Yeah.
That's stressing the skin. You're wondering why you're always trying to you're suffering from some kind of skin condition.
And now there's a big push in understanding in the skin microbiome, which wasn't here 10 plus years ago. Now we're starting to understand what these products do to your microbiome on your skin, which can lead to acne, boils, scarring, right? And again, we were, I don't want to say ahead of the curve, but we were very intentional when we made our products. We made sure they were healthy and beneficial for your skin microbiome. They're actually certified beneficial for your skin microbiome, which again is something that we're trying to show how our products are intentionally designed.
What does it mean when somebody says scientifically proven versus clinically tested?
Yeah, so scientifically proven and clinically tested or clinically proven are two different things. Scientifically proven is done in a lab, test tube, tissue culture, not done on humans. Clinically tested is done in a clinical setting on humans with subjective endpoints and time points. So a lot of consumers don't realize that. They think, well, if it's scientifically proven, it must have been tested on people. That's not true. They could have just done an enzyme assay or did something in a tissue culture plate, showed that it worked, but there's no guarantee that it translates over into actually working on the body.
If you think about all the other skincare trends like microneedling, chemical exfoliation, what's useful, what's not?
Like exfoliation.
Why the sigh? Because
there's some good stuff there, but there's also a lot of like hype and marketing pull in there. A good exfoliation, cleansing, unplugging your pores, removing the dead cells, that is necessary. Microneedling is good to help get things deep into the skin. But again, too much is a bad thing. I mean, you can go and if you have so much damage occurring to your skin over and over again, it's not going to, be able to rebound as if you do it in smaller increments. Same thing with lasers, right? Like people will go get lasers and then their face will be all inflamed and then they'll get hyperpigmentation because they damage their face. And it's like, how do you prevent that? Well, now you got to use something else. Yeah. Well, maybe you shouldn't have done, 10 laser treatments. It's a balance, it's a balance.
What claims or ingredients do you think make claims that are just super hyperbole, super exaggerating, or are just downright false and dangerous?
So it depends. If you look at the products, if they test on the products, the claims are around the product itself. It's hard to pinpoint an individual ingredient.
So they just bulk
because they bulk it all together. Yeah. If they do an individual ingredient, you have to question, was this ingredient tested by itself or was this ingredient or endpoint tested with the final product? It's hard to say if it's dangerous or not because they all have to be safety tested, right? There all has to be stuff in there. It's just, is the dose that's in there actually causing the outcome that they're claiming in the final product? And that's where you do the scientific testing, the clinical testing, and then testing of the ingredient by itself is needed to support it. But very few companies actually go out and do that because a lot of them just buy ingredients from ingredient suppliers. Like they don't create their own ingredients. They buy them, put them together, and it's the same ingredient you'll get in one brand as it is in another. It's just a different product and a different celebrity on it.
But without naming brands, is there anything that's actually dangerous that people should stop using?
Things with a lot of acid, very low pH, a lot of the chemical peels, things like that can cause some damage. Things that react in the sun, like a lot of products that have high retinol, stuff like that actually reacts in the sunlight and can cause damage to the skin. So you got to be very careful with what you use, when you use it, and how you read the use case and instructions. Some people don't read instructions. They just put it on whenever they feel like. And then they'll have like
user error,
but they, they'll go out in the sun after they put on like retinol cream, stuff like that, and then get burns and stuff.
You do have to have a podcast. I think you do have to have a podcast because you see people spending, outside of the fact that you have a company that has good products that are science-based and science-backed and done by, the research has actually been put into it. The education around how to use it and also just the exceptional amount of money that's wasted on products is not good. I don't know. I always, when there's products that impact your health, obviously every company needs good marketing, but sometimes when you have great marketing and a product that hurts your health and well-being, I'm not really a big fan of that.
Yeah, there was a woman on the plane when
So you should, my point is, you should have a podcast so you can educate people.
So I can educate people on food, on all space, art, whatever you...
We haven't even spoken about art. Yeah, that's a whole other side.
It's a funny thing though. There was a woman on the plane when I was flying down, and we were talking, and she hurt herself running. She sprained her ankle and something with a tendon, and she bought these peptide pills for $80. She was like, "Do you know what this peptide is?" I was like, "No, that's like a trademarked like random peptide." And she said that the advertisements were saying that would help improve muscle growth and damaged ligaments and stuff because it improves collagen. And I was like, I don't know if that's good. And she's like, well, I spent $80. I took it for 2 months and I didn't notice anything. I'm like, yeah, that's usually what happens with those.
Sounds things. Like the upscale version of the gas station Viagra. That's
the bee pills or the horny goat weed. I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it sounds like because. I mean, I know a little bit about peptides. I've had some people speak about them, but most of them are not a lot of them you take through a pill format, usually injection.
Yeah, because you get denatured in your stomach or the bacteria break them down and it's...
People, I mean, this is again, outside of just like health and wellness influencers, a lot of companies take advantage of someone stressed out about how they look, how they feel,
and hey, for $20, which is like maybe a few days worth of coffee, you might as well try it to see if it works, and you multiply it by 100 million people.
But then forget the fact that somebody spent $20 or $80. Like if it isn't effective, then what's in it? What's in the filler in the pill, or what's in any of it that you're putting into
methyl cellulose, which is just nothing. Rice flour,
that's the best case scenario.
Yeah,
that's the best.
That's
case
the best case.
Yeah,
the best case.
Best case is it has like a neutral impact.
Neutral effect. Yeah.
When you think about moving from scientist to entrepreneur, and you'll always be a scientist, but now you're building an actual business. What would be your biggest challenge in taking like cutting edge research, science backed products, and then bringing it to the market?
Yeah, this is a big one because scientists and academics want to drill down and get every answer and be perfectionist. And that's not what's needed. You have to get it to a point where it's acceptable and it's functional and it'll make an impact in the market. Launch with that and then make innovations and improve it as you go, because you will be killed by trying to make something as perfect as possible. And as someone who is in the space, I will always see imperfections. It's like if you build something, right? It may look amazing, but you know where all the imperfection 100%. And you try to go and fix it. It's the same thing with products. And then you'll end up in a downward spiral where it's like, oh, I got to wait to fix that. Got to wait to fix that. Wait to fix that. And then you never go to market. It's death by analysis or overthinking. If you can get a good product consumers like, it's going to be impactful. You launch with it and then you take that feedback and you make the appropriate changes, because what you think is important may not be what is important for the market or for consumers, right? Like we're going through this now. Like I love the bottle. I love the dropper, but consumers find it confusing. And I would have never known that unless I launched it, right? And now we're trying to change it. We're moving, we're adapting as it goes. But I've known a lot of people who have a great idea, but they say, oh, it's not ready. It's not ready. It's not ready. And then someone else comes out with it and they get scooped and then they're nothing, right? And that's, so you have to know when to call it.
You have to know when to call it. You have to know how to take a complex product and find a way to tie it into existing user behavior as well. To your point about the dropper, there was a point where I tried to launch a transdermal vitamin patch company, and telling somebody that instead of drinking a coffee in the morning versus putting on a patch with caffeine, it's a hard user behavior to crack, right? Like they don't want to put on a patch.
It's not natural.
No, they have to have this whole experience of drinking a coffee. And to build a business, I would say that trying to modify human behavior is one of the highest friction points that you can overcome. So if you don't have to, don't do it. Find a way, if possible, to take what they're already used to and then just layer on a better product, even a slightly better product. I mean, in your case, it's a significantly better product, but even a slightly better product tied into existing user behavior is going to be probably the easiest way to take something to market.
Easiest, and the consumers will think it's amazing because it's better than what they have and what they know. And even though there's more, there's room for other improvement. But it's for any business, you got to think like that.
I'm curious if like the scientific messaging helps or hurts your marketing.
Yeah, that's a big problem. So when we launched, we were very, very science heavy, and it almost scares some people.
I was thinking.
So now we're dialing it back. We're going, I don't want to say a rebrand, but we're dialing back on more of the crazy innovation and more of things that support why the innovation is good. So testimonies, reviews, before, and things that are digestible. It's very hard to digest all the crazy stuff that goes into it because people just want to use it and see if it works. They don't care about the science. And it was good to cut through the noise. But now as we're maturing, we're understanding, okay, we have to dial it back. And instead of being science forward, and then everything will be like, oh, here's why it's great. Here's what people are seeing. Here's the benefits. And guess what? You can trust it because it's backed by all these things. Yeah. It's backed by, here's all the credibility if you want to look into it.
Yeah,
so that's how it changed.
I was wondering because you have to, you as an entrepreneur, you have such a heavy science background, but you have to think like a marketer now.
Exactly. Yeah. Watered down, the things that drive, like click, like even we found, like we can get people to our site. And when you look at the flow maps, it's like I don't want to say they get lost in it, but we're redefining the flow maps. There's a lot of stuff that goes into, like you said, human nature, what you expect.
I have no doubt. When you think about the R&D that you're doing right now and the potential for new products, normally when like I'll speak to an entrepreneur, it's pretty easy to figure out the TAM, the total addressable market opportunity, because I don't usually recommend people do red ocean products, blue ocean, excuse me. I recommend they don't do blue ocean. Just find an existing market and then sell into that with a slightly better version of what already is there. But when you think about like all the different opportunities as an entrepreneur that can literally invent something new that's never been done before, how do you sort of weigh out the possibility where you want to spend your time and energy and resources?
The shiny object is very hard to combat.
I have no doubt.
The good idea fairy should be shot out of the sky, right? And this was something we started out with in the beginning, because we had, where Delavie spun out of, we were a very unique company where we were developing products to solve and address some really serious problems. Everything from new gels, new polymers, even working on submarines type of stuff. And to go into skincare, it's like you have all that stuff in your back pocket, but you need to focus and be good at one thing and become known for that. So we focus exclusively on ingredients and skincare for that. And we are slowly building out. But that doesn't mean other companies or groups who want to partner with us will come in and be like, hey, I see that being used for this. And I'll be like, okay, let's do an agreement or partnership to go after that. I'm going to stay focused on what we're doing, but we can work with you to go into this new market in return for royalty with certain sunset, stuff like that. So it's diversifying without being too distracted. And that is another thing that, because everyone will give you good ideas, like, wow, I want to do that. I want to do that. But then you pivot so much, you end up in the same spot. You just go around in a circle over and over and over again. So you got to be very disciplined on what you do. And if opportunities come that are outside of your focus, but you think they're a good idea, maybe you can leverage a group or a partner or something else to co-develop something into an area that you don't see yourself going.
A quick shout out to the HubSpot Podcast Network for supporting Success Story. Now, if you like Success Story, you're going to love other podcasts in their network. One of my favorites is Create Like the Greats. It's hosted by Ross Simmons, obviously brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. You're going to join Ross on Create Like the Greats. Ross dissects the genius behind history's most remarkable creators and their legendary work. So you're going to get this blend of history and business and creativity. He has a great voice, always good for a podcast, and he has a decade of practical experience. He's going to break down some of the best creative processes that built influential companies, brands, and stories in a way that anyone can apply. So whether or not you're fascinated by history, creative thinking, or you simply want to improve and systematize your own creativity without sacrificing productivity, this podcast is your perfect listen. Go listen to Create Like the Greats wherever you get your podcasts. A huge shout out to Lingoda for supporting today's episode. Now, if you're ready to master a new language, Lingoda is the online language platform trusted by over 100,000 students worldwide. Lingoda offers live classes with real teachers available 24/7. You can choose from German, English, business English, French, Spanish, or their newest edition, Italian. What sets Lingoda apart? The smallest class size in the market. It's just you and up to 5 other students. Or if you want, you can go one-on-one for personalized attention. Their native level teachers don't just teach language, they share culture too, and you'll speak confidently from day one. With Lingoda's flexible scheduling and proven curriculum, students report being able to navigate real conversations in weeks, not years. And if you're using Lingoda for business, their CEFR aligned courses ensure that you're learning internationally recognized language standards that employers value. Between sessions, you're going to reinforce your skills with downloadable materials and bite-sized practice exercises. And all Success Story listeners, they put together a special deal. Try Lingoda free with 3 group classes or 1 private class. Plus, you save on any course with my link, try.lingoda.com/successstory and code Scott25. Don't miss this chance to transform your life through language learning. When you started Delavie and you sort of took it to market, you're a scientist first and I guess an entrepreneur second, but you always had like a little bit of entrepreneur in you, even from, we're talking about what you're doing as a kid. And so I think it came a little bit more naturally to you than most other like incredibly brilliant science or non-business people that are sort of product first people. I think like a Ph.D. or a CTO, engineer, developer, like somebody who is so obsessed with the product and build a great product, but has never built a business around that product. So for that kind of founder, What is your advice to them?
Yeah, that's a hard one. It's letting go, I would say, because you can be so involved around the technology. You want to make it the best you can, but you have to listen to what the business people, if you're surrounded by good people, are saying, and be like, okay, I'm going to weigh what they're doing. I don't agree with them exactly on the tech development or when we should launch, what we should do, but they have a better understanding of the marketplace than that. Like I said, knowing when to launch or knowing when to put your flag in the ground to go to market is a big one. And understand that there's always time. If you have a good product coming out, there's always time to reinvent it and tweak it if it's successful and it goes. And, the market will tell you yes or no if your idea was good right away, right? You'll know. And then you can be like, that's great. I want to build upon that. I'm not a business person. I have like some business training. I have a certificate in business from Eisenberg.
Maybe you're figuring it out.
You're figuring it out.
I know a lot of people that have I would say you have figured it out successfully. I know the business is like still a work in progress. It always will be. But I'm talking about the incredibly brilliant person who is just paralyzed with fear because they have no idea how to build it.
Just try it. Just go out there. There's a lot of tools. Surround yourself with good people. Like find people who will work with you, who share your vision, who understand the technology. Leverage your network. That's another thing. You'd be surprised at the people who know someone else, and you can work with that. I never valued networking. I'll tell you, when I was in graduate school, I was like, oh, conferences, networking. Why do I need that? Now all I do is network, and it's amazing because I'll be in a bind and I'll call someone like, oh yeah, I know someone who does this, and they give you a warm introduction, and you can go from there, and it allows you to grow. So really understanding your network's worth is very, very important.
You probably have more than most. I always laugh when people are so concerned about their IP when their IP is insignificant. It's nothing, but you actually have IP that is significant. You have intellectual property that no one else, very few people else on this earth can understand or have access to, right? So if you think about that from a commercial or a business lens, how do you decide when to patent something versus when to keep it a trade secret? Or how do you protect your IP when IP is actually integral to your business? A lot of founders, they're worried about their secret sauce getting out when there's really nothing under the hood. But you actually have that concern.
We have a great legal team, and we always go for composition of matter, right? Which is like everything that could possibly come out of something. Yeah. And then we in our patents, we'll disclose what it uses, what it can be used for, its efficacy. But for example, we keep a lot of trade secrets. So like the way the organism's grown, how it's maintained, all that's trade secret. That's not, available. So somebody
gets your product, they can't reverse engineer it.
Yeah, they can't because it's not alive. It's not living. It's an extract from the organism. We have complete control of the organism. It has to be grown, maintained a certain way. And even though we have manufacturers that produce it at massive scale, we just hand them something and they just do something. They don't actually know the secret sauce or the stuff that goes into it, right? So it's like being intentional on, because patents are published, right?
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. So when you publish it, you'll see.
You have to be very intentional and understand that's where good IP lawyers, which luckily we have, really, really comes into play, where you can publish your novel and, innovative thing, but not completely give it away. And then some things are pure trade secret. We have some pure trade secret things. Patents aren't always the best strategy, but it's always good to have an opinion or someone look at it.
What would be the most important? I want to just unpack some like entrepreneur lessons that you've learned throughout your life and your career and your journey, but building a science-based business in particular, what would be a very important lesson that you've learned?
It takes a lot longer than you think. It takes a lot longer. I mean, coming in, not being in this space. I mean, I basically went into the business world right out of like graduate school after my stuff, right? So I wasn't really exposed. And something that I thought would take, 3 months, took like 8 months, this and that. So you have to be patient, right? And you have to understand that there's a lot of ups and downs. Nothing is as easy as you think it is. One other big thing is we did a lot of work in the lab, but we didn't realize that some of it wasn't transferable to scale-up technology. So like the methodologies we were using in the R&D lab weren't compatible with bringing it to market, so we had to tweak it. So, in hindsight, if I would have leveraged on manufacturing consultants more and been like, hey, we're trying to make this at scale, here's what we're doing, is this compatible? They would have probably said no, and then we could have tweaked it and saved things a lot of time. Money's always an issue, right? Whether you survive by grants or you go and get VC money or private money, learning to pitch is something that is very, very important. And one thing I learned is science is great in a pitch, but too many plots and graphs and too much science is a snooze fest.
Yeah.
You have to, again, understand that everyone is as excited about the science as you are. Yeah, it'd be great to do it, but they care more about like ROI, like how fast to go there, what milestones, what they could do for it, and really understanding that and leading with that and then coming with the science instead of being science. I mean, I've seen a lot of scientists present and pitch at events, and everything is graphs and data and this and that. Then they have one slide on like products and impact on market, maybe 2 slides.
That's what people care about when they're putting money
and the bankers,
yeah.
and they care about that, and they only need like 2 slides of science to show that it works, right? And that's it, type of thing. So that's another thing. Yeah.
If you think about just personally building this business, what has it changed in you as an entrepreneur, or even as just as a person? Like, by coming from a science background into building a business, being an entrepreneur, what have you had to adjust?
Yeah. So I don't want to say I've been like a risk taker, but I don't mind taking risks. Like, I've started and created a handful of companies. Some of them failed. I had a baby clothing company that failed, an AI company that we had to close down after a handful of years. But understanding like what I can handle in terms of workload, what my limitations are, when to ask for help, what to go for. A lot of people as a founder think they have to know everything. They don't want to show weakness, right? But, you're only as good as as strong as your weakest link. And if you're the only link and you can't do everything, so, I had to start being like, okay, let me pull in other people to do that. From that, but it is doable. Like, you can learn a lot of things if you put the time and effort in, and really listen and be open-minded to people and not listen, just take inputs from all different angles. You can build a pretty good roadmap on how to move forward.
I think that understanding your own like weaknesses, I think that's the key, being the massive amount of self-awareness. I mean, for me, I always have to understand my own shortcomings to be successful. And I think that the sooner you can get rid of the ego is probably
big thing. Yeah.
That's when you find yourself being successful, because the ego is going to block you from making good hiring decisions, from delegating, from asking for help, all these cliches, but they're so necessary. If you think about sort of a personal truth you've had to accept about yourself as an entrepreneur or as a leader, what was that truth, that one thing that you are not good at that you need someone else to help out with?
Obvious one is marketing. I'll say that straight away, marketing. But the first thing was I understood the business, I understand the model. I didn't understand all the pieces that were necessarily there. And in the beginning, I think I oversimplified it. I was like, oh, just this and this and this. And unfortunately, I only learned about the hiccups when I hit a hiccup. And I was like, oh man, I have to do that. So I think, fully understanding everything the best you can, no matter what business it is, to the best of your ability, not just jumping into something blind and saying you'll figure it out on the fly, but being like, okay, this is my roadmap. This is what I want to do. Here are some of the hurdles. And that may seem common sense and obvious, but in an entrepreneur startup, you're doing 1,000 things, right? Yeah. And you're trying to build everything. And yeah, I have a team. We have a big lab. We move forward, but it's still not like a 200-person enterprise, right? It's still a startup, and we're in the millions for what we do for products and stuff like that. But we're still building it, and understanding that's very, very important.
One thing that I think you've done exceptionally well, and people don't know that you actually do other things outside of being a scientist and teaching and running an incredible skincare company. You also have other, businesses, passions, whatever. But everything you jump into, you seem to do it with so much confidence. Have you never had imposter syndrome in anything that you do? A lot of people suffer from that.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome is something interesting.
I'm just thinking about how different all of your worlds are. People who don't know, like he also has an art business. He also has a real estate business outside of this. So,
and I've done other businesses that have failed.
The AI business,
a clothing company, and I was actually going to create a nonprofit for something, but I decided to wait because I got too much going on. But I witnessed something, so instead of creating one, I just do it out of my own goodwill without any stuff. But imposter syndrome, I think because I'm passionate about it and I invest to understand it, I'm not like, oh my God, I don't belong here. Like with art, like I love art. I've been around art and collectibles for a long time, and I just feel comfortable with it. Yeah, I don't know all the small nuances that go with it, but because I'm invested in it, I'm willing to learn and do it and not be like, oh my God, I don't know how to do that. I'm afraid to do it. I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to go and do it. And that's one thing I can say is that, I'm not afraid to, some people are like, oh, I don't know how to create an LLC. I don't know how to do this. And then they get afraid. I'm just like, what are the steps? Oh, these are the steps. Let me do it. Let me do the next thing. How do we do this? What's the next thing? And it's just taking the first step. And I always say something, inch by inch, life's a cinch, yard by yard, life is hard. And that's what I go with. Like if you take things in incremental steps, it's easy to get somewhere. But if you want to create a company and you want to make it like $1 million company the next day, that's impossible unless
you'll be overwhelmed. Outside of the fact that it's impossible to do. But
if you take it small pieces at a time, you build confidence. You're like, wow, I did that. Wow, I did that. Wow, I did that. Wow, I closed my first deal. Wow, I got into my first store. Even though it's small, you did it. And then you just build on that. And that gives you the confidence to go.
You do so much. And you also have a family. And that's the only reason why you haven't started a podcast yet, is because you have kids.
Yeah, I got 3 kids.
Apparently you can't return them. So.
I can't return the kids. So I'm stuck with the 3 daughters.
That's fine. That's fine. But if you think about balance, I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs have an issue with. And I'm curious if you have advice. And if you haven't done it perfectly, that's also a good lesson. But do you have advice on how to balance family and other relationships outside of work?
Yeah. So when I first started, before I had kids, it was work all the time. Like I'd work.
I have no doubt.
Go home, work all the time. It
still sounds like it's work.
Go do that. But what I learned is things can wait. Emails can wait. Texts can wait. I work in a lot of different time zones. And that's another problem. I mean, there were times when I'd be taking calls from Australia, 3:00 in the morning in a closet. So I wouldn't wake anyone up. And the guy, I remember, the guy's like, what's around your head? I'm like, oh, I'm in a closet. He's like, why the hell are you in a closet? I'm like, because I don't want to wake anyone up. And this, but yeah, so now it's like, okay, I do all my work. And then when I get home, I understand the emails can wait. But that's very hard to do. Your phone's dinging all the time. Your emails ding all the time. You're like, oh my God, if I don't answer this call, this guy will never call me back. Just remember, everyone else has lives too. People seem to forget that the bank you're doing business with probably has a family or probably wants to go on vacation next week. So even if you respond right away, they may not respond right away. And I think once you understand that and you're like, okay, I'm here, you do your life balance, you work out, with your family, and you try to work out for yourself, whether it's exercise or doing hobbies to help recharge you, you'll actually perform better at your work, right? Instead of being drained and tired, oh my God, I gotta do this. Oh my God, I gotta do this. And you get worn out and you don't know what to do. Make time for yourself. I know it's so hard. I still suffer from it now. I'll be like at the dinner table and I'll be like, oh, I gotta take this email, this and that. I'm like, no. And guess what? I don't. I wait 2 hours when the kids are in bed, everything's done, and then I'll just do it. And the same thing happened as before.
It's funny because I think that you made a really good point that it's really hard for like an ambitious, high-performing perfect person to understand this. But when you do have those hobbies, or you create space for that leisure activity or movement or gym or family, I do believe that it makes all my work more focused, because now I know what is it? It's not Pareto's principle. It's 80-20. What's the other one? That the work expands to the time that you give it. I'm blanking on the actual term for it, but that's the theory. The work,
because you put so much effort in, because you know it's your time to do it.
Exactly.
You have to be efficient.
You have to be efficient. You have to shut off distractions, and you have to work on urgent, important. And a lot of us work on things that they make us feel good because we're doing stuff.
Because they're easy to do,
but it's not really required. And I even when Gina's out of town, and I don't have anything else to do at the end of the night, I'll find myself posting like 3 more posts on Instagram, because I'm like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, that's really not going to make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things. Like, it's really, or even worse, I'll start thinking about other things I can start, like complete other businesses. And I'll start going, and coding up a website in my spare time, because but really, is that going to make a difference in your life? Most often it's not. But I think that even some of the other businesses that you have, I actually think, and I'm curious if they act as hobbies for you to a degree.
Yeah, everything is a hobby.
Yeah, I see that now. And that's why, when you first told me about the art business, I'm like, that seems like such a disparate idea and business. Like, why are you art over here and then your science and skincare over here? But I think art is a creative outlet to a degree. So it makes money. Good. Your hobbies can make money, but it balances.
Yeah, there's a lot of hobbies that drive my wife nuts. Yeah, I got some Lego sets. I got pinball machines I fix. I used to work on cars and motorcycles. I got all the things to keep my hands dirty. Because like I said, when I was younger, I did a lot of stuff with my hands. Yeah. And I can do stuff in my hands now, but it's not the same thing, right? Like the stuff I work on, it takes years to see it come to reality. Where like last summer, I built a 750 square foot deck off my house. My wife's like, oh, let's do a little deck. I'm like, let's make it bigger. Yeah. And then she wanted even bigger. And I was like, I don't know. And it caused an argument. But anyway, built the deck. I did it all myself. My dad came and helped, dig some holes, poured some concrete pilings. But then I did the frame, everything else myself, did everything. And people are like, why do you do that? That's so stressful. I said, no, it's like relaxing. I don't have to think. Yeah. It's a different type of outlet where I see what I'm building, instead of working with microscopic things I can't see. Yeah. It's the same with all the other hobbies. Yeah. In businesses.
I think it's important sometimes to focus is good, but also taking space to be creative, to think about something differently. I've always found that helps me solve problems in the main thing. I always find that. What would be the most difficult or darkest moment that you've experienced as either a scientist or an entrepreneur? Something that hasn't gone the way that it's supposed to go, really, but it was a lesson that you learned, but you wouldn't wish that lesson on anyone else.
Yeah. I don't want to say like false prophets, but when you're beginning, you're starting out and you're trying to find people to help you. Mentors or people to actually help you with the business. You want to make sure they'll actually help you and do things, not just give you support or ideas. Like, you need people to actually help you to do the grunt work to get stuff going.
Not just people pontificating.
Oh, it'd be great to do this. Yeah. Oh, you should do that. And I've known a lot of friends who've had startup companies and stuff, and they get these really cool people to help, but they actually don't help. They
want to latch on.
Exactly. And noticing that right away is an issue. Now, I haven't experienced that myself, but I've seen people do that. I've been very lucky where the ecosystem of people that I've been around with are very like-minded. They want to get in the trenches. They want to see it go. I mean, my mentor had, I think, 27 companies at one time, spin-outs from all different things.
So he's been in the arena. It's been
in the arena, and that's priceless information. But I've seen other people, they're very desperate. They grab onto anyone to help, and it's almost like it kind of drags you down because you think you're going to get actual help and traction, but it actually just piles more things on you, and then you get more nervous because you don't know it. And then you find out that person actually doesn't know it. They never did it. They just were in a meeting where someone said the same thing.
I think that, I don't know. I've had to develop a pretty good like BS meter for people. It's tough though. It's very tough. People are very compelling. I mean, I don't know what advice that I would give outside of, if you have the luxury of it, see how people work for an extended period of time before choosing to take their advice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, some of the people that I take advice from, I've known them for years, and I've, been to their wedding, or I've seen, their kids grow up. And at this point, I've seen how they navigate work and business and entrepreneurs, spend their own lives. And then I can sort of trust their advice. But when you're first starting out, you latch on to anyone and anything that seems like they're going to guide you towards what you want to accomplish. But a lot of people just want to latch on, take a little bit of equity. And they don't do much. Yeah. So you can also protect yourself. Like, I mean, it's important to understand like vesting schedules and setting up contracts that specifically outline what they're going to contribute and KPI, whatever you want to do. But I mean, first time entrepreneurs definitely,
they're not thinking about
don't think about all this, just thinking. And same goes for raising money too. Like, raising money is also not the best thing to do. Raising money from the wrong people, it's going to put more stress on you and pressure. And I think that just taking a step and understanding that, taking like a step back and understanding, okay, what do I really want to build? How fast do I want to build it? Why am I doing this? Who do I want to align myself with? What evidence do they have that they're actually going to help me versus hurt me, whether or not it's money or just mentorship, advisory? I think these are all, just pause for a second before you jump into anything legally. Definitely.
Yeah. Money's the big one because everyone needs money, right? But you have to understand, some people who come in with money have a certain milestone. Oh, you need to exit in 5 years or exit in 3 years. So you want to make sure you want people who will who have the same mindset and will walk with you to get to your goal. But I can understand also, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to raise some money. Any money you eventually see is better than no money, because no money, you're out of business. So try to do the best you can to find someone, or have terms in their contracts that allow you to, still grow without having to be forced into something.
I think it's so smart. And that's why I hope that when people listen to this, they can understand that, like, you don't have to speed run entrepreneurship. You don't have to rush it. You only have to be successful once in your life. That's really it. And that's you'll make more money than you ever thought possible. I mean, you've been building Delavie, like, how many years? But I mean, considering that first bean sprout.
Yeah. So
that is what led to this company.
Yeah. First bean sprout, actually the dead animal pile led to it too. So a long time. I've been working indirectly with this since 2009, 2010. And I had no idea I was going to end up here. It's amazing, pathway, but it just goes to show to keep doors open. Don't assume that you have to stay in a rigid pathway. That's it. That's another big lesson, is like, be open to any opportunities that come around. I know a lot of people, even scientists, they're very stuck in their ways. It has to be this way. I want this to be like this. I want my product or this invention to be just like this. When in fact, if you just pivoted a little bit, it was outside of your comfort zone a little bit, but that would have had more of an impact and opened up more of a market than, being stuck in your ways. And that's another big thing.
Out of all the things that you've learned, what was one thing that you had to unlearn to get to where you're at today?
That's a very good question. I had to unlearn believing everyone has good intentions, I think, is a big thing. You have to assume everyone has good intentions, but at the same time, you have to assume that they're not going to be as invested as you are in your idea or your thought process, especially when you hire people. As an entrepreneur and you create a company, you create something, you love it so much, but the person you hire is not going to love it as much as you. And you have to understand that. Like, that's why I'm saying finding people who work with you, believe what you're doing, want to put in that grunt work to do it. Because some people will just say, oh, it's a 9-to-5 job, whatever. I'm just in for it for whatever. I'm doing the 2-year thing and going to a new place. Luckily, I've had a lot of employees. They've stayed 4, 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years because they love the product. They love what we're doing. Yeah, some leave for personal reasons, stuff like that, but none of them are like, I'm only here as a step, because it's a very driving, empowering thing. But that is a privilege to have. It's not normal. And I know a lot of people too have, it's like, oh, I got this great tech company. I love it. I love it. But my engineers leave like every 6 months because they use it just, and you have to understand that. And it's kind of, part of it.
It's tough. It's really hard to find good people. It's hard to find people that are aligned with the mission that you have. Do you have any advice on how to find those people? I mean,
that's
tough.
It's very tough.
And I think it's gotten more tough in 2025 when people can work from home with any company in the world. So the incentive to stay is diminished. It's not because they live within a 20 to 30 minute commute and that's the incentive, and you're the only company that they want to work at within their local area. So you have to, first of all, you have to be a good person and a good entrepreneur, and that's like the bare minimum at this point. Like if you're an asshole, people are gone. But outside of that, one idea that I've always had, and maybe you have some ideas as well, but one idea is that you make a contract with the person, forget the employment contract, but a contract with the person so that while they're contributing part of their life to building your company, you're also seeing where they want to go and you're helping them get there. Yeah. But being not just giving it like lip service, but being purposeful about, okay, so if you want to make X amount of dollars or have this title or do this kind of work, let's figure out a path to get there. And I don't know if the people in I don't have a big team like I used to. So I haven't tested this theory in 2025. It used to work very, very well pre-COVID, but people weren't as transient in their jobs pre-COVID as I think they are now. So the people that are 4 or 5 years in, that are still working with you, do you see like a thing that you give them that makes them want to stay there?
Yeah. So the hardest thing with a startup or anything is that there's not a lot of growth, right? There's not a big ladder. So it's like you have a team, 10, 15, 12 people, but you're not going to have 12 vice presidents.
Of course
after,
not. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
or you won't be around for long.
Right. So, it's been a challenge, but we offer a great work environment, competitive benefits and salary. I don't like to micromanage. Sometimes I do micromanage depending on how urgent the stuff has to be. But normally I give the employees like freedom to be creative as long as they hit the milestones and deadlines for certain projects that are required. They can do other research, look for new things. It's a work environment that is more free and forgiving for, it's not just you doing this every day, not blah, blah, blah type of thing, because it's very hard to do that. And when I hire people, I look, you got the resume, you got the credentials. But I look for like grit. It's hard to explain, but it's like people who've like done a lot of different jobs, not like every year, but like, okay, maybe they did landscaping or then they did something else. Or when you interview them, you ask them and they're not just like, oh, I did this, and that's it. They stayed in one lane. Someone who's kind of had
they've had to learn and upskill repeatedly to be successful.
Exactly, where they had to like overcome things, and they've worked with different types of people, different work ethic, stuff like that. Because in a startup, you have to wear tons of hats. And if you come in and hire someone who's only known, pure industry 9 to 5, they do one thing. They may not like having to do marketing one day and R&D another and help with this. And then they're like, well, I just want to come in and do my task and leave. So I always look for that type of.
It's a hard person to find, but when you can find them, is there a way that you found works to hold on to those kinds of people? Like, are they people that are passionate about skincare?
I don't know.
Is that like an X factor, or is it just they like working with you? Like, I'm trying to figure out what keeps somebody around.
I think you have to have an interesting job. There's a lot of stuff going on that keeps their interest. You have to have a work environment that supports them, whether it's financially or conditions in the work environment. And you have to have like an obvious goal direction that is an improvement, right? Like if you're just making the same widget, there's no like stimulus in like, be like, wow, I get creative freedom. I get to actually build something.
No, you're going to feel like you're dying every single day, a little bit more. I totally agree.
And because we're ingredients and skincare and innovation, there's a lot of freedom, creativity, like creative freedom for like, okay, like what's an indication we want to go after? What's missing? Let's work on that together. And then they get so excited about it. It's like, oh, I want to work with packaging. Oh, I want to work with regulatory. Oh, I want to help do the clinical studies. Yeah. So you build this ecosystem of a team. And yeah, our team is separated. We have some people who just do R&D in the lab, some people who just do like ingredient manufacturing, some of that just does like logistics, manufacturing of packaging stuff, marketing, but they're all working together as a goal because they all know how one person influences the other. So they all kind of come together and help. So it's an interesting place.
No, I mean, you built an amazing company. You built a company that people stick around and want to help build with you. And it's just, from all of my friends that are currently building, it's not easy to find great people that are along for the ride. What do we not go into? I don't know. We went through a lot
of things. Art.
We didn't talk about art yet.
Hobbies, whatever you think is interesting. It doesn't matter.
I think art's a little bit interesting because I mean it's totally a 180 from what you've spoke about so far. But I think the level of detail that you understand the different hobbies that you take on is I don't know. There's something to be said for just how you think through a problem.
Maybe I don't think at all.
Maybe that's the answer. Maybe that's the answer.
I do think, but
how does art help you with the rest of your work? Do you find that it gives you creativity?
I like the idea of art, both the creative side, but also the market side. So like speculation, whether it's art, watches, cars, now that tangible is becoming a massive commodity and almost investment grade type material. Just seeing that with what I love, like when I was a kid and even when I was working with my brother, like I appreciated it, but I never thought like the magnitude or the scale of just like anything, right? Like coffee, for example, you can love a Starbucks coffee, but when you start digging into coffee and you look at the espresso machines at your house and all the fine beans you can get, it's like an infinite wormhole. And then you feel like, wow, there's a lot more to coffee than just the $7 now coffee I get, right? And it's like the same thing with art. Like, wow, I like it. It's interesting. Wow, I like all this stuff. And then you start going down and you're like, wow, there's a whole industry around it. And there's a sub-industry. And then there's the industries that influence that industry. And that's tied to the markets. And markets are tied to capital and capital rate. And it just fascinates me. This is going to be stupid, but when I was younger, I always loved to play like city games, like Sim City, where you manage, you try to manage 8,000 things. So you've got the roads, the traffic, the water, the taxes, the farm plots, the commercial, the police, and you're like, wow, I have to plug all these things to make it work in unison to make a successful thing. And I love that challenge. Like I love it. I'm like, wow, this does this does that, this does that. This is the map to get it. How can I tweak it? I tweak one thing, it changes. And I guess that's what excites me with business as an entrepreneur, because like each business is similar, but they're all different.
But you like building an ecosystem that leads to an outcome.
Exactly. I love the idea of working on something that ties into so many different things that all leads to something successful.
How did you get involved in art?
So from my brother, actually. So my brother, he's on Antiques Roadshow. He has a big art gallery, an art auction house. And he introduced me to the world of contemporary art. And I've always liked art, but I never really appreciated it.
You collected everything else as a kid.
I mean, I collected cereal boxes. So I have like, this is going to,
I feel bad for your wife.
People are going to judge me now, but like I have like unopened cereal boxes from the 80s that are graded silly putty. I used to have like a collection of orchestra whistles. I have pinball machines. It's embarrassing. But yeah, anyway. So I liked collecting like interesting things, not just like, oh, this because everyone collects it. It's like, well, I like this because of all the detail. Like pinball machines, for example. Yeah. If you open up a pinball machine, it's a mass network of wires. Yet each of them impact something else. And if one of them is off, everything fails, just like building cities.
You apply science to everything. It's just like the science part of your brain. I see you apply it to literally everything.
I'm like, wow, there's so many different things, so many factors. And I'm getting excited because I'm like, yeah, this is so cool. Like this little thing impacts this, impacts.
Do you ever like take apart computers and stuff like that?
I build computers all the time.
Cars?
I've rebuilt. So I have a 1969 AMC AMX. Yeah. I rebuilt that with my father in 2005. We rebuilt a 1966 Pontiac GTO. I rebuilt 2 motorcycles. I build house. I do construction, decks, plumbing, electrical, heating system, like all that stuff. And because they're all connected, and I apply that to science. I try to connect all the dots.
So anyways, your brother got you into art.
He got me into art.
You know more about art than, like we were talking before we pressed record. You know more about art than
maybe the art market, but I learned it all from my brother. I'm not taking credit. My brother knows a lot and he taught me a lot. And I have a lot of mentors and stuff in the art space, serious art collectors.
So you started an art business.
Yeah. So we started an art business and it was fun. I mean, it's called Variable Editions. We're kind of on a hiatus now, waiting for the market to come back. But we have,
no, but you can't just overview. We just did a hard 80 into art. You got to go to the weeds. No, it's very interesting. Yeah. So talk about, please, like educate. I've never had anybody on this show who has ever spoken about art.
Yeah.
Really, never. A lot of entrepreneurs, never really science or skincare either. You actually have a lot of different things to offer that I've never been able to bring on before. So I appreciate you. So you got into art. You were telling me before that we are in like an art recession. For certain types of art, like a lot of art prices are down. Yeah, there's some that are doing really well, but usually when the markets are not performing well, tangible assets, especially arts, are some of the first to be hit because people want to be more conservative and hold on to their funds. Then I don't want to say risk it, but then put it into things that aren't nothing's guaranteed, but a little less risky. And this is so the question I had, just to tee that so people understand the context. So the art like the Warhols or the Picassos that are bought by billionaires, those will always have a set value. But kind of the emerging artists, the ones that are on their way to be blue chip or on the way to be institutional artists, those are very susceptible, along with just the budding artist, right? Because so we made a company where it's called Variable Editions, and we would have an artist make a line drawing, and then on top of that, they would do an original piece of artwork. Because what happens when nobody knows it? So like artists, when they go to galleries, there's like usually a stipulation where a gallery can only sell the original works of art, but artists can make prints and reproductions of things. So because we had them make a print of a line drawing and then they embellished it or made an original on top of it, it was kind of outside of the legal agreement with the gallery. Yeah, for the galleries. And it allowed us to bring unique pieces of artwork to people who couldn't necessarily pay $100,000 or $50,000 for an original piece of art. And it was great. It was fun. The artists loved it. We were very good to the artists compared to some of their other deals. And the customers loved it because we gave them access to high quality art from artists that they would only dream or hope to have access to. And this led to a lot of connections and introductions to people in the art space. And my brother being on Antiques Roadshow is a big deal. He does pop culture on there, comic books, trading cards, stuff like that. But that still is a big, big deal. And that's why we did a TV show, or tried to do a TV show before I split. And that was the decision. TV show or postdoc, and now so now I could still do TV if I wanted, I guess. I think start with a podcast. And I didn't even realize this, and people are going to be probably surprised. I mean, it just goes to show you how you should support the smaller guys if you can. But if an artist is not selling, or if an artist loses relevance for a period of time, they could be gone forever. I have learned that it's almost like their career is over. in some cases forever. So if you are not trending on social media and say you're not selling, you're not selling blue chip art, but you're selling $50,000, $100,000 piece, which seems like a lot of money but if you're not trending, then someone else will replace you. And then it's very hard to get that traction back. So I don't know how art markets work. Now I do a little bit, but it's not like a stock market where, if some stock tanks, well, the company's still operating, 6 months or whatever, it's going to come back. That's not the case for some artists.
That's not the case. They'll become irrelevant and then they end up just being a bargain piece.
Because that's right. So all their pieces get dumped on the market and just tanks their value as an artist.
Yeah, that's like a big problem. Like secondary markets impact artist value all the time. So if you're in a recession, people are exiting. There's problems with the art, and then the artist can have to do a complete change of careers. And it's unfortunate because a lot of artists are very talented and stuff like that, but they just
seem also talented. That's what I don't understand. Whenever I see a piece of art, and
right here, you walk around.
I know. You walk around, you see art everywhere. Art Basel.
Yeah.
I know some of these people are not making a lot of money, but I see their works and I follow some of them on Instagram and some of them record how long it takes and the energy required to put these pieces together. And I'm like, man, like you're spending like weeks of your life putting something together that doesn't make you any money at all. It's a tough business.
It's a very,
very tough business.
Very tough business. Yeah. So it's,
how do you break out? Do you know any opinion on how you break out as an artist? I wonder, for example, when there's so many, I don't know any artists. I see Alec Monopoly everywhere because we're in Miami, but first of all, I have no idea how he sells his shit for so much money, but I also see a ton of talented artists that I feel are not making much money at all. And I can't figure out like why that piece is worth, $500,000 versus the other one is.
It's the art game. It's who's collecting it, who's promoting it, what gallery you're in, what feature you're in that drives the hype for the limited piece that there's only one of. So it's,
you see socials like the biggest influence
like
now?
Hype beast type art and stuff like that is kind of, that took a huge hit because that was based on just social media excitement, not necessarily lineage of artwork.
Lineage means time the artist has been
how long you've been around, what museums you're in, what art shows you've been in, where are your pieces located. All that stuff impacts the overall, I don't want to say trajectory, but the overall holding of the art. And it's fascinating. Even comic books are fascinating. How there's some that are millions of dollars and there's some that aren't, and it's all graded. So there's a certain grade that drives value. And, it's just, and there's people leveraging that now with all these limited editions, right? Yeah. The only problem now is people are actively saving and collecting them, where the original Spider-Mans, the original comic books, people never thought they'd be worth anything. So they threw them out, which is why there's a demand where there's no supply. But now everyone's saving everything that's a limited edition. So in 20 years, there'll be 1 million of them. So there's no value, where the high-end comics, kids ripped them. They threw them out. They wrote on them.
That's what created the value.
And that value, because people are like, wow, I want to relive that. But there's not any left, or not a lot left that are actually in good condition. Yeah. So now you're fighting for it, where now a kid will buy a comic book and not even read it, put it in a drawer thinking it'll be worth money, but 1 million other kids are doing that. So now you have a whole other market pushing limited editions based on what they see from the price value of comics or other collectibles that there were never limited editions of.
Are there any, what in your mind, this is not investment advice, but what in your mind is a place that you could put your money that's not in stocks? People talk about, you just know collectibles. I don't know what you know. People talk about Chanel's or Birkins or Rolexes, but outside of that, I don't know anything about comic books or cards, or is there anything that your brother deals with this all the time.
My brother deals with it all the time.
I'm going to have him on talk about all that collectibles.
I'll tell you, there's actually funds that invest in comic books. There's funds that buy comic books, hold them, and liquidate for returns. You have whole companies like Masterworks is a great example. Is an investment thing where you buy a piece of a of a piece of artwork with the idea you'll sell it in a few years to make money.
Art, people know. Are there some categories that people don't know that you think people should put money into, or at least look at?
I mean, everything's a gamble, right? And there are some things like name brand things like Rolex watches, stuff like that. They'll always be, they'll always have a floor. You don't really know what the ceiling is because it's based on demand, but there'll always be a good chance that you'll do that. High-end comic books are becoming more in that category. People laugh at them, but comic books sell for millions of dollars.
Cards,
Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering cards. My brother did an appraisal on Antiques Roadshow where a woman brought a box of Magic cards and it was appraised at $250,000. And like she was blown away by it, right? There's a lot of things out there. You just have to be smart and do your research, right? There's a lot of people trying to pull fast ones, especially in things that aren't regulated. If you don't know what to look for, you can easily think, wow, this comic that has this is worth this, but it's not, right? So you, just like any investment, you want to be educated on it, do your diligence, figure it out. And don't look at this as like your main way of making income. Being like, it's fun. Like, oh, I like this comic book. I like this video game. I like this when I was a kid. I want to put it on my shelf and look at it. And if it's worth something in the future.
If people actually if people do want to put money into it, I know that one of the Paul brothers bought like a fake Charizard for some ridiculous amount of money, like in the hundreds of thousands. I think it was something stupid. But is there like a body that gives you the okay?
Yeah, there's grading companies that will grade the card, basically the quality of it, the authenticity of it, all that stuff. And it basically gives it a set value, right? So like if I had an opened card or an open comic book, there's no real way to say, oh, this is worth 1,000 versus 5,000. But when you have something graded and authenticated, it gives you a certain number out of 10, like 5 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And then you'd be like, okay, this is this quality, so therefore it correlates to this value, which is why graded cards, comic books, graded baseball cards, graded coins.
You said you have graded cereal boxes?
Yeah, I have graded cereal boxes, and I actually have graded silly putty from the 1960s unopened. And
have you seen how much it's worth?
Cereal boxes. Some of them are a few $500 for some cereal boxes unopened. Some a few $100. Yeah.
So if you're going to put money into any of this stuff.
Not cereal boxes.
Yeah.
But I did it because I collect a lot of Ghostbuster things. So I collected some Ghostbuster cereal box. But anyway, that's.
God bless your wife for putting up with.
That's why she wants me to start purging with the 3 kids and all their stuff now. It's like, oh, okay. So now I'm just trying to get rid of stuff to make up space.
Dude, you never know. Maybe you sell something and you make more money than you make with your company. Who knows?
I know what I have, and I don't have anything there yet. I would know right away because I would already be gone. And college would be paid for the girls right away if I had something like that.
I love it, dude. Okay, where should people connect with you if they want to find out about what you're working on? Yeah,
so I'm on Instagram at Kyle Landry Ph.D. I'm on LinkedIn if anyone wants to go the business route. But besides that, you can go to DelavieSciences.com and you can reach out to us. We could talk to you about stuff, but otherwise just Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm always open to talking to people. I've helped mentor a lot of students. A lot of students come up with new companies, so I help them create new companies. Work with them to, help them not fall into the road pits, the things that I did over the time. But,
you have such a diverse set of hobbies and passions.
And this is just the tip.
What else do you do?
There's a lot of...
You have to come back.
Yeah, I'll have to come back. There's a lot of interesting things outside of that. That I've done, the fundraising and community work and stuff like that.
That's all very important. You should put up a website at some point.
Get this, that and a podcast. And
if you put me on a Zoom with your marketing team, you're gonna have a whole personal brand built out. Oh my God!
Selling T-shirts.
at the bare minimum, all I want is a podcast out of you because you have a lot of wisdom. So please start. Maybe next time, by the next time you come on, we'll have a podcast to push people to. Last question I like to ask, out of all the different things that you've learned in your life, say you have to pick one that you want to pass on to your kids. What is that lesson and why?
Family first. And why that's important is having a good relationship with your family gives you a good foundation to take risks. A lot of people, and I'm not saying I have the perfect relationship with my family, my wife, whatever, there's always ups and downs, but knowing that I have a solid foundation there, someone I can go to, whether it's my father or my aunts, whatever, to talk things out, allows me to take risks without worrying. Nothing's worse than being successful in business and then having a family issue, and then that will impact your business, understanding priorities. So like the kids, the wife, and like I said, I've not done everything perfect. Like I'm still working on a lot of things, but understanding that, like I said, like work-life balance, like that is very important because, businesses can come and go, but your family is there. And you want them to be there to help you, support you, understand, and eventually work with you is the ultimate goal. And that's easy to lose sight of, right? I mean, it's very easy. Like I said, before kids, it'd just be work with my wife. Same thing. She's very high performing as well. She's very top rigorous job, excellent at what she does. And we just work. And it was fine single, right? And then when the first kid came along, okay, we could still balance it. Now I have three, right? A 6-year-old, a 2-year-old, that's going to be 3 in April, and an 8-month-old. And that's not doable now. Someone always is losing. So having that balance to make sure everything is solid there. So then when I go to work, I can focus on work. I can focus on growing, expanding, and not worrying about the other things. And that's so easy to lose sight of.
I think that's one of the most important ideas. I appreciate you sharing that. I speak a lot about how the person that you pick, like your spouse, is one of the most important business decisions that you're ever going to make, because if your house is chaos, and it bleeds into your business, it bleeds into everything. But I can only imagine the spouse for sure. But if you don't have a healthy, like safe household with the kids as well, everything else in your life, you won't be able to commit 100% of yourself to it.
Yeah, it's, and I will tell you, like, you don't realize it because you'll be like, wow, I'm doing this business. I'm working hard to raise money for them, but they don't care about that. They want you as a person to be there, to engage with them, to listen to them. That is worth more money than any money you can save for them to go to college, because you need to build a relationship with them so that they want to be around you when you're older. Like, honestly, like, I want to hang out with my kids and my family and stuff. I don't want them to be like, peace out, Dad. I'm never, I'll talk to you once a month type of thing.
And people lose sight of that.
Yeah.
They lose sight of that. And then they, on the other side of the exit, then they're trying to repair.
They're trying to repair, and it's not the same because the damage is already there. And like I said, I still struggle with that now. I tried the best I can, but I can't say everything's been rosy. There's been really good times, really bad times. And now I'm just, trying to work it out so everything is okay.